Amazing that there's a McDonald's on every corner, a Burger King on every corner, a Taco Bell on every corner. I would encourage all of you to watch a movie on Netflix, a documentary called Super Size Me. But the reality of somebody is keeping the fast food restaurants alive and well. Now, if you want to get hit by a car, on Wednesday night, just walk out into your neighborhood, close your eyes, and if you get hit by a car, the odds are it's going to be someone delivering pizzas from Domino's. Because every family has, quote, pizza night. I've got a buddy who can go weeks without consuming a single vegetable. So one of the things we have to start with is that the American diet is probably devoid of healthy nutrition. Here's another thing that's pretty scary, is if you look at fruit and vegetable consumptions, you say, okay, well, John, I eat tomatoes. Well, here's a newsflash. I live in Florida. If you go over to a place called Plain City, they raise tomatoes over there. I used to bicycle through the farms over there, and they raise hundreds of acres of tomatoes for Hunts and Hines, and the migrant workers will plow the field, strip the field, and they start the tomato plants in hot houses, actually up in Canada, and fly them down to Florida, and they will put these tomato plants in the ground, and then they spray it with liquid nitrogen so they grow quickly, and as soon as they have about half-green, half-red tomatoes, they run in there and they just strip all the tomatoes out and pull the plants, and the next day there's a new set of plants in the field. And they never put anything back into the ground except fertilizer, 10-10-10, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. There's no potassium shortage in the United States, but guess what? The zinc, the selenium, all those trace minerals, they checked out of our farmland about 40 years ago. We estimate today, if you were to eat a tomato grown at the turn of the century, you would have to eat 8 tomatoes today to get the same lycopene content. You would no longer get the selenium, you no longer get the zinc. Well, guess what? Is that important? I don't know. Lycopene prevents breast cancer, lycopene prevents prostate cancer. Zinc is an immune booster. Everybody knows cold flu season, you boost your immune system with zinc. It helps in the reproductive process, right? Selenium holds vitamin E in the body, shown to prevent prostate cancer. And all these minerals have checked out of our farmland. So we got, 2 reasons that we don't get adequate nutrition from our diet. First of all, we eat incorrectly. And even those people who try to eat correctly are stifled by the way that we grow fruits and vegetables. This has become so bad. If we look at the research, there was a couple of PhDs that went back and looked at volumes of research, and the conclusion that they published in the Journal of American Medical Association was every doctor, that's you doctor, every doctor in the room, that's you doctor, every doctor in the room should be making a recommendation for a multivitamin supplement. Now there's a reason that doctors don't make recommendations for multivitamin supplements. From 2002 till 2009, I was the owner of a couple of nutrition stores in South Florida, did a Health Talk radio show. I'm a certified nutritionist, and people would walk into my health food store, and this is not my health food store, but it's very similar. I had 4,500 different products on the shelves, 13 lines of multivitamins, and people would walk into my store and say, John, which one of these products do I take? There were 2 questions that absolutely drove me insane. Question number 1 is, what's the best product in your store? How do I answer that question? How do I tell you, out of the 13 multivitamins, which one is the best supplement? I would look at the labels, I would talk to the manufacturers, I would try to figure that out, but how could I possibly answer that question? Guys, there are 700 roller coasters in the United States listed as the tallest, the biggest, the fastest. How could there possibly be 700 roller coasters in the United States, tallest, biggest, and fastest? The reason we can advertise our roller coasters, the tallest, biggest, and fastest, is no one ever shows up at a theme park with a radar gun or a tape measure. You don't say, well, let me measure your roller coaster. Well, guess what? When I owned this nutrition store, I had a vitamin retailer's guide. It was a book that I had that listed nutritional companies. If somebody came in and showed me a bottle for a particular product, I could flip over and get the address or the fax number or the email or the telephone number for the company. Now, this is not all the nutritional companies in the United States. These are just companies that listed in the Vitamin Retailer's Guide. There were 1,700 companies. Now, for the 7 years that I owned the nutrition store, I want to give you a little news flash. About 300 of those companies actually sent pretty girls in there, usually girls, not always, but usually a young woman, short dress, nice build, to tell me why I should be carrying her multivitamin supplements in my store. They kind of look like pharmaceutical sales reps. And probably the rest of the companies picked up the phone and called me and said, John, you ought to carry a supplement. Not one time did anyone ever say to me, well, our supplement's not number one, but we're pretty good. We're number two and we're trying harder. What did every single supplement company say? I want you to think about this. If you've ever been approached by a nutritional company, what did every single nutritional company ever say? We got the best product. And the reason they could get by with that is because no one measured. I want you to think about that for a minute. Has anybody ever walked into any nutritional store and asked about any nutritional company, any product, and it's the best? Well, we chelate our minerals. It's isotonic minerals. We process differently than everybody else. We discovered an herb in the Peruvian rainforest that will absolutely, we've got the only molecule ever. How can 1,700 companies be number one? The truth of it is most nutritional companies have zero size. They have zero size. They have zero scientific people in their company. They are marketing companies, and about half of them have their products manufactured by the same manufacturer. In fact, if I was a doctor and I wanted to private label a product and put my name on it, within 2 weeks, I could have 200 products with Dr. John's vitamins on it. All I got to do is call up a company, and what are we going to spend our time doing? Picking out my label, designing my label. They're already running them down the track. I had a buddy who had a nutritional wholesale company down in South Florida, and every time a nutritional product came out, he would just knock it off because they weren't patented. There was a brain product called In Focus that was sold on TV for $89. He ordered one bottle, looked at the ingredients, called up the manufacturing company, and said, I'm going to call mine True In Focus, and what's it going to cost me to duplicate this? And they said $4 a bottle. And he said, John, I'll sell it to you for $8. And you could mark it up to $29.99 and put it beside the $89 product. What's it tell you about nutrition? That there's not science behind the product. But see, in 2005, a guy walked into my store and he said, John, I got a piece of equipment that will measure nutritional levels in the body. And I said, finally, somebody's going to put some sanity to this nutritional industry. Now, here's the second question that absolutely drove me up the wall. The first question was, what's the best supplement? So, okay, I think this is the best supplement. I sell you the best supplement. The next question that used to drive me crazy was, how do I know it's working? John, how do I know this nutritional supplement's working? How do I answer that question? How do I explain to you that you're not getting cancer? How do I explain to you what it feels like not to have your arteries harden? See, health doesn't necessarily feel. The guys in the room get this. The women in the room are confused right now, but I will tell you, there are guys that go out and play 18 holes of golf and they feel great on the first 9 and they die of a heart attack on the back 9. All right? We don't feel supplements. You want to feel good? I just had a glass of wine from the bar. Every time I have a glass of wine from the bar, I feel pretty good about that. There are people out there that feel pretty good when they do cocaine. there are people out there that feel great when they get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee and a donut. They get a caffeine buzz and a sugar buzz. Does feeling equal health? And the answer is absolutely not. You don't feel your arteries not hardening, you don't feel yourself not getting cancer, so here's what we need to do. I couldn't answer that question. I said you take nutritional supplements on faith. I want you on a good multivitamin because the research tells me that that will slow your risk of cancer. I want you on omega-3 oils because the research says that will slow your risk of heart disease. But suddenly, a guy walks into my store with a piece of equipment. I can stick my hand in front of a piece of equipment and measure my nutritional levels. I can get a baseline reading. Guess what? It answers both questions. What is the best product in the store? The one that raises your antioxidant score the most. How do I know this product's working? Well, I got an idea. Let's get a baseline reading of your nutritional levels, put you on a nutritional product, and have you come back in 30 days. Doctors, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about this. I'm trying to imagine walking in for my annual physical. I walk in to meet my doctor, and as I walk in, he goes, "Hi, John. I think I'm going to put you on Lipitor. I think we need to lower your cholesterol. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm going to put you on blood pressure medicine. We need to lower your blood pressure." And I would probably revert to being an old Marine and saying something really crude and rude like, "Hey, guy, think you might want to put a blood pressure cuff on me prior to putting me on blood pressure medicine? Do you think you might want to run a metabolic panel before you put me on a cholesterol-lowering medication?" How many people have we heard that said, "Oh, the doctor changed my medication"? How come? Because he was measuring it before? He was measuring it after? But we put people on nutritional supplements without measurement. If you think about it, that we are adding sanity. This scanner adds sanity to an insane business. Here is what is scary. Doctors, I want you to get this. 70% of your patients take nutritional supplements. If they are my age, born between 46 and 64 baby boomers, 80% are taking supplements. If they happen to be female, it's even higher than that. Here's a question you've got to ask yourself. Are you going to be the person that makes a scientific recommendation on a high quality product, or are you going to trust your patient to go to the GNC store and talk to the 18-year-old kid that just graduated from high school with a D average, telling your patients what nutritional supplements to take? See, your patients are taking nutritional supplements. Now, from a business perspective, there's an income stream that's flowing through your practice, and you're either tapping into it or you're not tapping into it. That's the business side of it. But from the medical side, your patients are going to take nutritional supplements, with or without you. My recommendation is you become part of that process and add sanity to otherwise what is an insane world. Because I will tell you that I was in that industry. I had a Health Talk radio show. I had some of the top nutritional companies come on my show. I told this story last night. It just absolutely blew me away. I brought a scanner into my practice. I started scanning patients, and my patients loved the idea. Baseline reading, supplement, guaranteed to raise your nutritional level, 100% money back guarantee, come back in 30 days, let's see where you're at. Suddenly I'm creating all these customers, and I thought, I really need to know this company. I bought a plane ticket, flew out to Salt Lake City, drove down to the headquarters of PharmaNex, Nu Scan, sat in the scientific presentations, met a PhD that had his doctorate degree, did his thesis on calcium absorption, explained to me why we use a triphosphate calcium in a product. Met another PhD who did her thesis on vitamin E absorption and explained what we had all 4 tocopherols and all 4 tocotrienol vitamin E's in our product. Met another PhD, etc., etc. We had presentation after presentation. I walked through quality control labs that had more test equipment that were bigger than some of the manufacturing facilities I've been with other small nutritional companies. I was just blown away. 75 scientists spent about $46 million over a period of years, referenced 400 different pieces of research study, hammered out the 100 nutrients that they wanted to put in LifePak Nano, and then were the first company to do a clinical trial on a multi-nutrient product. Blown away. Came back to my little nutrition store, went back to being my little nutrition store owner, had my Health Talk radio show, and I get a phone call. A big nutritional company called Twin Lab. Some of you guys may know that company by 6 or 7 different brand names. They're in sports nutrition. I think they sell under Tech and different labels. And they've been sold about 3 times. They kind of got in a little financial rift. And the motivational speaker, Tony Robbins, bought the company and said, I'm going to pour some money into that company, get it kind of back on its feet. And they called me up and they said, John, we'd like to sponsor 6 of your radio shows. And I said, well, that's good news because I charge big money to be on my radio show. I like that. But here's the deal. In television, it's Nielsen ratings, and radio, it's Arbitron ratings. And I said, my Arbitron ratings just came out, and I'm doing pretty well. I actually was head-to-head against Dr. Laura in the local market down there and was beating her by quite a few thousand listeners. I said, my audience doesn't want an infomercial. Nobody wants to turn on an infomercial when they're listening to Health Talk Radio. I interview guests. We talk about health and nutritional issues. I'll be glad to let you sponsor my show. At the end of my show, if we're talking, for example, about omega-3 oils, you can say an example of a good omega-3 oil is Twin Lab. But first, we're going to talk about the health benefits and why you take it. And I said, here's the other thing. I want a doctor, a PhD, a book author. I mean, I need a resume. I just can't say I got Bill coming on the show and he's a nice guy. I want a resume. And they said, not to worry. PhD Dr. Stacy Bell, PhD in nutrition, will represent us on your show. I said, well, give me her number. I'm going to do the pre-show prep, call her up, tell her how to dial in, tell her to keep her answers short, talk about what we're going to say, kind of pre-game this thing. So I call up Stacy Bell. She is just a sweetheart of a lady. We became friends. And so I'm doing the thing. Stacy, here's what we're going to talk about, back and forth. Keep your answers short. We're going to go to a break at 17 minutes to 32 minutes. And after we chatted for a few minutes, I said, how long have you been with Twin Lab? She said, I'm not with Twin Lab. I work for Harvard Medical School. I'm one of their top nutritionists up here. I'm a nutritional product at Harvard Medical School. And they just pay me to do several radio shows. I do 6 radio shows a year for them, and they send me a check. Then they send me another check to be on their advisory board. I said, well, what do you do on that? She said, not really anything. That's interesting. So she comes on my show, she dials into my show. Well, at the start of my show, I go, oh, by the way, John Whitaker, Nutrition First, Healthiest Hour on Radio. Welcome to the show. Also, I'm the owner of Nutrition First Health Food Stores. Stop by our store. We have a device that will measure your nutritional levels. Stick your hand in front of a little light. Use a technique called Raman spectroscopy. We can measure your nutritional levels. And on the air, Dr. Stacy Bell squealed and goes, oh my gosh, you got one of those antioxidant scanners. We just got one up at Harvard Medical School. So that's the most amazing piece of technology. So about 20 minutes into the show, I'm watching the show clock going, ooh, we've been talking about this scanner and how cool it is to measure nutritional levels, and Twin Lab's kind of paying for the show. We might want to get back to that topic. So we finished up the show, and I'm driving from the radio station back to my nutrition store going, isn't that odd? Just out at Pharmanex, they have 75 scientists. PhDs, full-time, not advisory board guys, full-time guys, lab coats, doing clinical research, millions and millions of dollars a year doing on clinical research. They have 30 nutritional products in their catalog, 30. Twin Lab's got 3,000, and they got to rent a PhD. What's wrong with this picture? So I get back to the store, and this is like eating at me. So I'm looking around in the store, and I got this big wall of New Chapter vitamins, and I pick up the phone, and I said, hey, New Chapter, you know who I am? I'm John Whitaker. I'm the #1 seller of New Chapter products in South Florida. You're famous whole food products, and I got a technical question. I want to speak to one of your PhDs. Is that a fair question? I want to speak to one of your scientists. I can hear crickets chirping. I spent the next 2 days calling up about 30 companies. The best I ever came up with was there's a liquid nutritional company that had a guy with a master's degree that probably knew less about nutrition than I do. And I realized that most nutritional companies are marketing companies because nobody's measuring. And I started measuring, and I started putting people on Pharmanex products, and I started to see amazing things happen. You know, I was just amazed. Every now and then, I'd pick up the paper, and there's some product I'm selling, and the newspaper's telling me that it's got PCBs and heavy metals. I mean, I saw it from Life Extension, which I thought was a pretty good company. It had a whole wall of Life Extension. Here's the Wall Street Journal, lead above acceptable safety levels. Oh my God. And I've just been out to Pharmanex, and Pharmanex has a banned substance control group certification. An independent lab certifies, randomly pulls products, certifies that there's no PCBs and heavy metals. I am telling you, this scanner, to me, changed the game. Back in the 80s, it was cool to say paradigm shift, you know? That was the thing. Every business guy was doing a paradigm shift. Well, I'm telling you what, if there was ever a definition, if you want to look at paradigm shift in the dictionary, if measuring for nutritional is not changing the game, if that's not changing the game, I don't know what changes the game. Let me tell you how this mess got started. A guy by the name of Mike Chang, he's over at Merck, and he's one of the top researchers. He's got hundreds of PhDs working for him. He does their botanical research. Most people don't know this, but about 70% of the drugs on the market have their roots somewhere in some botanical product. And he's talking to his buddy Joe Chang, who's over at Wyeth Labs. Joe Chang is just published a book, was on a New York Times bestseller list, has about 40 patents, about 300 published papers. Most PhDs publish about 50 in their lifetime. They're talking and said, you know, between the two of us and our two companies and a couple of other companies, you know, we got about 8,500 drugs on the market and counting. And every day, 3,000 people die of heart disease. Every day, 3,000 people die of cancer. We have a 9/11 every day in the United States, kind of silently. Heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, what do we know? What do we really know about those diseases? At the very root cause of those diseases, it's not viral, it's not bacterial, it's not genetic. There was almost no cancer 200 years ago. It's not genetic. What is it? Heart attacks used to be rare. What is it? It's food. It's nutrition. It's lifestyle. And we're making drugs. The human body does not have a Lipitor deficiency. It doesn't. The human body has vitamin C deficiencies, vitamin D deficiencies, and these guys said, look, somebody ought to do something about this nutritional thing. And Joe said, yeah, but there's 1,700 companies. And he said, but there's no science there. Nobody's really approaching nutrition the way we in the pharmaceutical industry approach drugs. What if a bunch of scientists really got together and approached nutrition the same way we do drug creation? With science and with research and hypothesis and testing, clinical trials. And so they went to Merck first. They went to Merck and said, hey, look, why don't we do this? And Merck said, no, are you kidding? We do drugs. You know, there's never been any money coughed up, ever, prior to 1995, for a startup nutritional company. Venture capitalists just didn't invest in nutrition. But you have to understand that Joe Chang and Mike Chang's resumes are this thick. And they partnered up with a buddy by the name of Carl Gerasi. And Gerasi is no lightweight. He's a multi-millionaire. Why? Because he's the guy that invented the oral contraceptive. He's the man who invented the birth control pill. The father of the birth control pill, which is an oxymoron, right? Single-handedly stopped the population explosion. The three of those guys walk into Fidelity Investments, and they coughed up, and Winder and Pritzker, they coughed up $46 million and said, here, go do this thing. Now, you give me $46 million, we're going to be driving nice cars, I'm going to have a hot secretary, all right? That's just me. But these guys put their money into science. They hard scientists. And you know, when they put together LifePak, it was the first time that anyone had ever done clinical research on a multi-nutrient product. 1,700 companies walking into my nutrition store telling me I've got the best nutritional product on the planet, and not one had taken the time to do clinical research. We proved that we could raise antioxidant status. And what did the naysayers say? Well, you just proved you can raise antioxidants, but you know the real damage is free radical damage. And we go, yeah, antioxidants stop free radical damage. Well, you haven't necessarily proved that. So we did another study, and we proved we stopped the oxidation of free radical damage with the same product. We stopped the oxidation of LDL cholesterol, I think by about 63%. Our company, New Skin, bought these guys several years later for $178 million. And here's the process we look at when we build a product. I'm not going to go through our success process, other than to tell you this. If you bought one of our products on February the 2nd, on a Monday, and another one of our products on March the 5th on a Tuesday, and another one of our products on May the 10th on a Friday, you ordered one of our products in California, and you got another product delivered in New York and another product delivered in Michigan, and you sent those products to the laboratory, you get exactly the same product every single time. See, here's what I will tell you. You can send your buddy or your kids down to the grocery store and say, give me a pound of peanuts. There's a hell of a lot of difference between a pound of shelled peanuts, its nutritional value, and a pound of peanuts in the shell's nutritional value. Does that make sense? Thing that drives me crazy, back when I had a nutrition store. You know how many products I have heard this on? Dr. Bob formulated this product. Dr. Bob is like the smartest guy in the universe, and Dr. Bob put together Dr. Bob's vitamins, John, and Dr. Bob knows everything. Well, I will tell you, Dr. Bob, first of all, probably doesn't have 40 patents. Dr. Bob probably doesn't have a book on the New York Times bestseller list. Dr. Bob's probably not published 300 research papers. Dr. Bob's probably not been in part of the development of life-changing drugs that allowed for heart transplants. Well, here's what Dr. Joe Chang said. Dr. Joe Chang's not smart enough to do this. Dr. Joe Chang needs a team. He needs scientists, 75 scientists with PhDs in nutrition. I need cardiologists. I need immunologists. I need toxicologists. We put together a team of people to build our nutritional products. I want you to think about that the next time you hear the Dr. Bob argument about how great their supplements are. We've got research teams. I'm going to fly tomorrow to Salt Lake City. Jessica's going with me, I think. We're going to go down to Provo, Utah, and we're going to do our training in a $110 million anti-aging research center. I want you to just take a look at some of our research affiliates. We do a lot of work with Stanford University. I don't know if you guys know who Scripps are. They're a pretty important group. All over the world, people doing research with us. Our scientific advisory board looks like the who's who. I told you Carl Gerasi, the guy who invented the birth control pill. Noni Nakanishi, Japanese chemist, is the guy that did all the original research on ginkgo biloba. He received an award in Japan. It doesn't translate well into English, but it's something like Chemist of the Century. These two guys have been on television many times, every time the Discovery Channel wants to do something on anti-aging. We just bought this company. I've been doing anti-aging research for about 30 years. And we get back to this. You're taking supplements. People are taking supplements. And the question, it begs the question, how do you know they're working? And you don't know they're working if you don't measure them. So here's what I will tell you. This company, New Skin Enterprises, that bought Pharmanex, we're traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the stock symbol NUS. You could read our company annual report that just came out. We'll tell you everything you need to know. 2012, we're a $2 billion company. 2013, we're a $3.2 billion company. We grew by 49% in 1 year. Why? Think about that. We're consolidating this insane nutritional market. We are going to doctors who are being asked constantly by their patients to do something about wellness, to do something about preventative health. We're going to doctors who are afraid of Obamacare. We're going to doctors who are working harder and making less money and saying, hey, I can put 50, 60, 70, maybe $100,000 in your practice doing a nutritional testing program. You may not know who this guy is. His name is Lester Packard. If you've ever taken a nutritional class, the textbook was probably written by Lester Packard. Here's another guy that's published over 300 papers, about 30 books, a book called The Antioxidant Miracle. He's the guy that coined the phrase, antioxidant. He's the guy that discovered an antioxidant called alpha-lipoic acid. He is the godfather of antioxidant research. To have him sit there and hold our original scanner in his hands is like being a basketball company and having Michael Jordan hold your basketball and saying, I've been doing antioxidant research for 40 years. This scanner validates my life's work. Here's the guys that invented the biophotonic scanner. You notice it wasn't our company invented it to make our products look good. Done at the University of Utah on a government grant. Uses a technique called Raman spectroscopy. Raman got a Nobel Prize for answering the question, why is the ocean blue? White light hits the ocean, oxygen molecules vibrate, shifts the light to blue, reflects back blue. He went back and started a whole field of research called spectroscopy. Essentially, carbon molecules have a vibrational frequency. Most molecules have a spectral fingerprint. The spectral fingerprint, the vibrational frequency of antioxidant molecules, just happens to be 473 nanometers. We send a light into your hand, 473 nanometers. It will excite carotenoid antioxidant molecules. That frequency bounces back at 510, hits an array detector spectrum analyzer, and we have an algorithm that converts that to an antioxidant score. We have now measured 13 million people. We have the world's largest nutritional database. We can tell you specifically what healthy looks like. And we can do that for you in 45 seconds.